Hi, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. This week I'm going to be reading a bunch of books that have just come out at the end of the year, so kind of trying to catch up on all my new releases. Most of them are books from series, so trying to finish off series, trying to catch up on new releases before the end of the year. But to be honest, so these two that I'm holding here I got from the library, and both of them I did put on my anticipated releases of the year list. However, there's also reasons why I'm a little bit uncertain about these, especially because I actually started both of these. I haven't got very far into either of them, but already I'm doubting myself. What I am really hopeful for is the audiobook that I'm going to be listening to. So the audiobook I've got is One of Us is Back by Karen M. McManus. This is the third book in the One of Us is Lying series. Is that what it's called? I don't know. But this is basically a series where in the first book, these teens all had detention, and by the end of detention, one of them was dead, and then the rest were all suspects, and we kind of went through their personal experiences as all their secrets came to light during the investigation, and we also find out what really happened. The second book followed kind of their younger siblings, as there was another thrillery type situation, and I believe the third book is going to be about something happening that makes people think that the teen that died in the first book is back. Now, normally teen thrillers aren't something that I would like, but there was something about the books in this series that just hooked me. I really enjoyed the teen experiences. They didn't feel too over the top or angsty. So I'm hoping that I haven't gotten too cynical this year and that I will still be able to enjoy the third book. As well, I have these two. So firstly, we've got Defiant by Brandon Sanderson. This is the fourth book in the Skyward series. Is that what the series is called? Or is it called the Cytoverse series? Is Cytoverse the universe? Anyway, this is Brandon Sanderson's like YA sci-fi series. I really love Skyward. We follow this young girl named Spencer on this world where basically humans live under the ground in caves, and anytime they try to leave the planet, they get shot down by these aliens. Spencer really wants to be part of this air force that fights the aliens, but because her father ran away during a fight at some point, no one has a lot of respect for her family, and she has to really fight to gain her position. Now, in the fourth book, things have changed a lot. So it's hard to talk about what's happening, but I guess high level, humans still fighting the aliens, but perhaps in a more strategic way. There is also a lot in here kind of about humans with certain abilities, and like quite a science fiction-y plot going on there as well. What I will say is, I know after I read the third book, I really hated the third book, but I said the concepts were really interesting, and so I wanted to keep reading to find out what the deal was with some of the stuff that was revealed at the end of the third book. Now the problem we have is I've forgotten the end of the third book. As soon as I started reading this, even though I've read the novellas that go between the third and the fourth book, as soon as I started reading this, I thought, I don't remember what happened. Those concepts that I said I was really interested in finding out more about, I don't remember what they were. So I'm kind of just reading this and hoping that like it'll get explained again, or my memory will get jogged. I don't know. But also, like, so far, just the tone of it is not really doing it for me. I feel actually a lot like it's trying very hard to explain why young people have been put into positions of power, when at the end of the third book or at the end of the novellas, I was like, this doesn't seem right. So I kind of just feel like so far it's trying to justify things. But admittedly, I've only read 35 pages, so I'll read some more of this. We'll give it a chance. Hopefully, it'll end up surprising me and be a good ending to the series. Then, the other one I have is The Fragile Threads of Power by V. Schwab. So this is a spin-off series from the original, it's just out of shot, the original Darker Shades of Magic trilogy by V. Schwab. I recently reread this in preparation for this coming out, and I really love the first book. I thought the first book really stood up to my memories of it. The second and third ones, admittedly, I read them via audiobook, and I did not like the audiobook experience, but they didn't really stand up to my memories of them. There is a helicopter outside, and also my neighbor is hammering, so if you can hear that, I'm sorry, but That's what it is. Anyway, this one, I'm about 84 pages into it and I am so bored. We did have right at the beginning a couple of new characters introduced and I was interested in them. However, then we went back just to following along or catching up with the characters from the Darker Shades of Magic series. And for starters, like as a spin-off series, I really think you should be able to read this without having read the original series. And I think that's kind of how it's been marketed. But like, I'm bored. I can't imagine how people would feel if they didn't have a connection to these characters. And maybe that's part of my problem, is that I'm not that connected to them. I think from what I've seen of the reviews, I think people who really love those characters are just really enjoying being back with those characters. I am like, we have spent 50 pages with you and you have not done anything interesting. So why am I reading your story? The only interesting thing that's happened so far is there was one bit where this magical artifact was being stolen. That was one of these new characters doing something interesting. But the old characters so far kind of are just very disappointing in terms of where they are 7 years on. I would have thought they'd be doing better. As well, there's another new character in here, which is kind of the one that gets talked about the most, who's able to see the threads of power and work with them. And she seems very similar to a character, to Lila, if you know. She seems very similar to Lila, to me, too similar. Anyway, I don't really know what else. I haven't really talked about what this is about, but I don't really know what it's about. In the original series, there are these different versions of London and people who are able to move between the different Londons, and each London has varying degrees of magic. But so far, that hasn't played a big part in this. There does seem like there's some kind of organization called the Hand trying to take down the royalty, and some of the characters from the original series are part of the royalty, so I assume that'll be part of things, but just so far, very little has happened. So, hopefully, by the time I catch up with you again, I'll have read some more and maybe things will have turned around. Okay, so I just want to do a quick update before I go for a run and get further into my audiobook. I don't want to leave it too long before I update you, because I am about a third of the way through all of the books that I'm reading, even though I am still struggling with these, but that's not just because of the content, although it's partly that. It's also just because it's the week before Christmas now and there's things that need to be done. But anyway, let me first tell you about my audiobook. So One of Us is back. So far, really all that's happened is it's kind of like refreshing you about what happened previously and then setting up kind of the new mystery. And I have really enjoyed actually being back with these characters. I just think they feel like nice people to be around, a good group of friends doing their best in difficult situations. Even when they're sometimes making bad decisions, it still feels like understandable that they would do what they're doing. I will say it. So the first two books are like, it's thrillers. There's twists and turns and reveals. And so what happens in the first book and the second one is somewhat convoluted. And there was like one sentence where it tried to explain basically the whole beginning in a couple of sentences, I think. And it just was the most ridiculous sentence, like very complicated. I think if you hadn't read the previous book, you would really be confused by it. But also, I don't know why anyone would pick up this third book without having read the rest of the books, because it's still building on all the relationships and like the backstory that the characters have. So in this one, basically there is a character in the first book who was guilty and put away, but now because of reasons he's getting a retrial, and all the characters are feeling quite tense about that. And then just when I was listening to it last time, one of the characters has gone missing. So we're not sure what's happened, but I'm sure things are going to get really tense, and I'm enjoying it. I am looking forward to continuing that one. Then we have Defiant. So this one, so far, I kind of feel like in some ways nothing is happening. It is trying to deal with some interesting themes. So I guess in the first book, Spencer is all like, I'm a warrior, I want to fight these aliens and go out and do heroic deeds. And then in this book, she's really coming to the reality of, well, that means you're going to have to kill people. Is that okay? And they're really thinking, well, no, it's not. But also, you know, we are being oppressed by these aliens, so we have to do something. So the themes are interesting, but, you know, I'm a third of the way in, and mostly it's just been Spencer dealing with her feelings over that and other characters dealing with their feelings over that. And to be honest, like, I still don't remember everything about what's happening in terms of the sciencey, fiction-y concepts that I liked, even though it's constantly being talked about. It hasn't given me like a clear summary, this is what happened in the previous book. That's what I appreciate from One of Us is Back. It knows I haven't read the previous books for a while, so it's given me an update. Whereas this, like, it's referring to things, and I'm like, yeah, is that because those characters did this? I think so, but like it's never just explicitly reminding me what happened, and so I'm still somewhat confused about that. I'm sure if I had loved the third book that wouldn't be an issue, but because I didn't, it is. But yeah, so far there's been a couple of spaceship battles as well, which kind of bore me. I think it's just basically it's been Spencer dealing with her feelings and lots of action scenes, and neither of those are my favorite. I will say though, I think the writing in this is like, it's basic, but it's well written, which I'm going to contrast with this book. So this book, I'm actually, I guess about a third of the way through, and I really think this needed a lot more work. I suspect Victoria Schwab has gotten to that point where she's so successful that she isn't being called out as much by her editors as she should be. There was one line or one page where I think I took a picture of it. Oh, I don't have my phone. But it was basically in a fight scene, one character thought about the other one. You know, he was fast. He had to give him that. And then like 2 paragraphs later, he was like, he didn't give up. He had to give him that. And it was just like very repetitive, and not in a way where you're like, oh yeah, they're making a point. It's like, wow, did anybody edit this? So, not well written. There's just lots of like superfluous lines, lots of things that could have been cut out. To be honest, I actually think first 200 pages, cut it. Not important. Or for the story I think it's trying to tell, it's not important. Maybe, I don't know what story it's trying to tell. I did see in the reviews on Goodreads, somebody had clipped a little bit by Victoria Schwab saying basically that she wanted to tell the story of these new characters and then have the old characters as a backdrop for that story. But that is not what's happening in this, because basically all we've gotten so far for the first third of this is like catch-ups of where the characters are, where the old characters are, and what's happened to them over the last 7 years. Which, for starters, in 7 years they have come nowhere. Like, there hasn't been enough character development for it to feel like a proper 7 years, and we really don't need 200 pages of telling us about it. It would be much better, in my opinion, if we just got those new characters' perspectives and we heard about the main character. I'm losing my voice. And we heard about the main characters' stories from their perspective, because our main characters from the previous books are in important positions. The new characters would hear about these things and know about these things, and we could get all that backstory and like a few little glimpses while the other new characters did things. There has only been about 4 chapters, maybe 6, of the new characters in this book in the first 200 pages, and it just feels like the story is not progressing. We're just getting stuff that could have been written in a few lines. It's taking 200 pages to tell us, you know, and it's really boring, and it's a lot of just like kind of flowery writing, and I assume some people will like it. I assume people who really love these characters will love spending time with those characters and getting to see everything that they've been through. But if you're looking for like a new cool story, then this so far hasn't even started. There is a group trying to assassinate the king and spreading rumors that he is the cause of there now being less magic in the world, and there has been a magical artifact stolen, but we don't really know why or what's happening with that. But that's it. Nothing else important has happened. So I will continue this. I keep thinking every time I pick it up that maybe I should DNF it. And I honestly don't know if I finish this whether I will continue the series or not, but I did read one review said the last 100 pages were amazing. So maybe by the last 100 pages we actually get into the story. Hopefully. Hello, so I guess Merry Christmas. It is now the day before Christmas, which is when my family tends to do the Christmas celebration. So today we're going to be going over to their place to do Christmas. Other than that, we're not really doing much for Christmas. To be honest, I really had planned to finish these a lot before Christmas, but here we are. But yeah, as I was saying, we're not really doing much for Christmas other than going to my family's today, because we just recently went traveling down the country on a bit of a holiday, and we're going to probably be going again in January. So for Christmas we're just going to stay home, especially since in typical style, it's raining for Christmas. Even though in New Zealand it's summer for Christmas, it almost always rains at actual Christmas, especially lately. Anyway, let me tell you about the books I've been reading. Let's start with the positive, actually. So firstly, I am like an hour, maybe 2 hours, given the speed I'm listening to it at, but an hour of actual listening away from the end of One of Us is Back, and I'm really loving it. I just think the characters feel really genuine and true, and unlike a lot of thrillers, like so many adult thrillers, all the characters are so toxic and unlikable, whereas One of Us is Back, all the characters are so likable, except maybe a few of the side characters or like the bad guys that are meant to be unlikable. Like all the characters are really likable, and even the bad guys are like understandably bad, like they feel like they have reasons for the things they're doing. And like the good people will also make mistakes, but it feels like genuine mistakes that people would make. They just all feel very relatable to me, but at the same time, like it still feels very thrilling. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of complexity to these stories, and like so many different things that some of them will turn out to be nothing, some of them will incorporate into what's finally going on. And like, so an hour out, pretty much kind of know what's going on, but like there's still a few questions, and I'm sure there's going to be some more surprises, and I'm just really enjoying it. And if it wasn't for the fact that we've been trying to finish off a bunch of things before Christmas, I probably would have finished it. I just ran out of time. But the next time I go for a run, I will definitely be finishing that one, and I'm looking forward to that. As well, so these two, I will say, both of these have gotten mildly better since the beginning. I'm probably enjoying this one slightly more, just because there is more of a plot in this. I think, so I'm about 2/3 of the way through this and the other one, and like some very exciting things just happened in this one, some reveals, some twists, and I feel like the end of the book is going to be exciting. I will say, I just happened to flick to see how many pages there were, and I can see some of the chapters near the end of the book are from other characters' perspectives, like not just our main character Spencer, and this has me concerned that either Spencer is going to die, or maybe because a big theme in this story is empathy, and so I'm wondering if using psionic powers, maybe Spencer would get to see things from other characters' perspectives. Or maybe Brandon Sanderson just decided that would be a better way to tell the story. I don't know, and I guess when I find out I won't spoil it for you. But interesting. I will say as well though, there was quite a big bit in this second third where it was a lot of just Spencer processing her feelings, a lot of introspection where she's just thinking things through, and then she'll go and talk to another character who will talk about their problems, and she will relate those problems back to her own problems, and it was a little bit repetitive and, to be honest, a little bit boring. But I can see maybe for the YA target market, for more character-based readers, that it would be okay. I like good characters, but I want to learn about the characters through the plot and through things happening. But I think this is either too much or not enough, because it's always like hard out action or this hard out introspection, and I want like some kind of in between. But as I said, some exciting things happened, so I am looking forward to the last third of this book. And then this one, I think I've got about 200 pages left, maybe only 150 something. So I will say the second third was more interesting than the first third, because at least in this one, even though we were still getting backstories, we're now getting the backstories of the new characters. I do think that we didn't need these backstories. Again, everything in the backstories could have been presented through the main storyline, and I really do feel like it would have been more impactful that way. The way that it's been told, I think, just makes it really slow. I do think, again, people who are really character-based readers and want to read like almost like a character study into why these characters are the way they are, then maybe you would like the story being presented in this way. But if you're hoping for like a really epic fantasy plot, or for like something exciting to be done with the magic in this world, because I don't know if I've even mentioned, like, the whole point of this world is there are different Londons, and each one kind of has varying degrees of magic, and there are connections between the different worlds. And there's been like just a hint of that, but hardly any. There's also, so in this, there's a new character, a queen, who is like doing magical experiments. Nothing done with that really yet. Like, there's been a lot of interesting stuff introduced, but nothing is being done with it. So if you're picking this up wanting an epic fantasy that does cool stuff with the magic, this is not it. Even though I guess there has been some moments, but they're so buried in like overwrought descriptions of the characters and just like lines that sound fancy but don't really mean anything. I just can't really appreciate it. But I think I said last time I read a review saying the last 100 pages were good, and I do feel like we're starting to get to the end of the characters' backstories. So maybe in that last 100 pages we can actually start the actual story. Maybe. Hello, so let's do a quick Christmas Day update while I have the house to myself very briefly while Jace is doing some family Christmas things. I don't often have the house to myself anymore, and it's, to be honest, kind of strange. Although, luckily, I'm not alone. I do have my neighbor's cat come to visit me. I think they were vacuuming earlier in preparation for their family to come around, and so he's come up here. I might send him home soon, though, because, like, it's Christmas. Shouldn't he be with his family? But he's kind of our family. Anyway, what did I want to update you on? Firstly, let me tell you about the books that I got for Christmas. I did get a couple. Firstly, I got this Road to Oz. Oof, that sun is bright, even though it said it was going to rain on Christmas Day, and it did rain this morning, but now the sun seems to have come out. Anyway, I got this Road to Oz graphic novel adaptation. So this is one of the Oz books. It's got Polychrome in it, which is one of my favorite characters from the Oz books. She's the Rainbow's daughter. She's just a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to reading this at some point, hopefully in January. I also have this Lightfall graphic novel. I read Lightfall earlier in the year and I really loved it. And the third volume is going to be coming out in April. So I'll reread this whenever that comes out. So that's exciting to have gotten some books for Christmas. I know that it's actually really hard to buy me books for Christmas because who knows what I've read? Probably everything. And also, who knows what I own? Anyway, other than that, I did also this morning finish off the audiobook for One of Us Is Back. That's what it's called. And I really loved the ending. There was quite a lot of like action-y, thrillery bits. There were quite a lot of reveals and surprises. And then the ending was just really satisfying with tying everything up. Like, I actually gasped at some of the surprises that came through at the end of the book. I'm kind of sad now. Like, I don't know if she's planning to write more books in this world. Part of me hopes not, because I would really like the characters to just live happy lives, but also I'll kind of miss them. I really just think these are maybe the best YA thrillers I've ever read. I do think maybe I've seen some reviews where people thought the characters were a little bit stereotypical and I don't know, didn't like the characters, but I really love the characters, and I just think the way that the mystery all comes together is very satisfying. There's a nice balance of like the personal issues that the characters are having mixed with these like murder mysteries that are going on. The danger feels really real. I just feel so engaged in the writing. I also think the audiobooks are really well narrated, so love that experience. Then these ones where I'm enjoying the experience less. I'm now up to the last 100 pages of Defiant. I'm going to try and read this maybe before Jace gets back. I have no idea when he's coming back. So we'll see how far I get through it. I don't think I'm going to finish it. But maybe I'll finish it today because we don't really have any big Christmas plans, as I said. So I'm up to the final battle. I have had a couple of chapters from non-Spencer point of views, and so far it just seems like Brandon Sanderson's trying to give a more full story from these different perspectives, but still don't know if more will happen with that. There have also been some cool twists and turns. There's still some elements, I think the sci-fi elements that I was the most interested in. I'm not sure he's going to do enough with it for me to be satisfied, but, you know, 100 pages, plenty of time for a Sander lunch, so we will see what he manages. I'm a little bit worried because final battle means a lot of action, and the action isn't my favorite, but, you know, we'll see. And I haven't read, oh, sorry, puss. I haven't read any more of this, but we'll see. I still have, I don't know, 150 pages to go, and I doubt I'm going to fly through it, so it could still be a little while before I get to the books that I was actually planning to read this week. Also, the weather forecast was saying rain for the rest of this week, which would mean a lot of reading time, but right now, as I said, sunny, so who knows, maybe it's a lie. Okay, so it is Boxing Day, and I have finally finished both these books. To be honest, this one especially was a slog, but both of them kind of a slog, and like, should I maybe have DNF'd these? Probably. Anyway, let me tell you about them. So I just finished The Fragile Threads of Power, and I know I read that review that said the last 100 pages they just couldn't stop reading because it was so exciting, and there was stuff happening, but I just don't think the writing style was gelling with me, and because I was just so frustrated with having been made to slog through the first 400-ish pages, like, I was too mad about it to enjoy the end of it. And as well though, I still just don't think the story was written in the way to get the most out of the story. Like, there were some very exciting things happening at the end, like especially like cool magical things and like a conflict kind of coming to a head-ish, some big battles, but they were kind of like glossed over and brushed through, in my opinion. Like, the big magical thing that kind of happens at the end of this book was like 2 chapters, maybe? And I imagine that if there's more books in this series, which I think this is going to be another trilogy, so I imagine the concept that was introduced at the end of this with that magical thing is going to be reused in later books, and it was kind of setting up for that. But it just kind of felt very anticlimactic to me, and I just got so sick of having these characters like over-explained to me, and I actually think that it was to the detriment of the character development. Like, getting so much over-explanation of their backstories and discovering that there's really not that much there made the characters feel like more empty rather than like real people. It was just like lots of words and nothing much really happening. Very superficial. As well, there are a lot of plot conveniences, like people just happening to be in a certain place at a certain time so that things could come together. There's one part where Lila loses a fight. Lila has never lost a fight. Like, all these ridiculous odds where there's no chance in hell that she would ever win in a certain fight, like a magical fight or a knife fight, whatever. Like, Lila never loses. She's very unbelievable. However, the one time when it would be convenient to the plot for her to lose a fight, oh, she loses the fight. It just, yeah, the whole plot was very convenient. I just think this could have been written in a much better way. Like, the magical concepts that are introduced are interesting, but just, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed with this. I'm surprised. I have heard that a lot of people are bored by the beginning of this and disappointed by it, but the average rating is still very high, and I am very suspicious about that because I don't think it deserves it. And I really don't know. I know, actually, I'm going to be tempted to continue the series when more books come out. And we need to try and talk me out of that. Like, you and me, let's work on that. When the next book comes out, we wanna not be sucked into that. Same for Defiant, actually. There is going to be like a new spin-off series written primarily by Jancy Patterson, who wrote most of the novellas in between the 3rd and 4th book. 2nd and 3rd books, in between the books. And I actually, in the end, think I like those novellas more than the later books in this series. Like, the first book in this series was great. I really loved it. Then, once it got into kind of the broader situation beyond this one human planet, it got a bit silly. And this book continued that, although it did also, maybe it was less silly than the previous book. There was, though, still a lot of action, which I get bored with. So I just think in the end, like, this series, I'm not the target market for it, but I think the way the first book was written, a lot of people will have gotten interested in this series and then not been the target market for it, you know? Because this is like a younger kind of targeted book for people who really like space battles. Which is a little bit weird though, because there are some really interesting scientific concepts being explored in here to do with like AI and existence. I'm trying to think, what else can I really say without giving things away? Psychic powers. Like, there's a lot of interesting concepts in here, but I just don't think enough was done with them because it was still focused more on the action than those concepts. And I also just think like the concepts that Brandon's trying to put into this story, like, it's really hard to express what's going on with those concepts. They're so abstract and like non-physical, like mental kind of things, that it's really hard to write down what it's like, and like it would never translate to like movie or screen or whatever. So I feel like in a lot of ways the series was really ambitious for Brandon Sanderson. Did it pull off what it was trying to do? I don't think quite, but again, I don't think what I wanted from it was what it was trying to do. I will say, right at the end, there was a little bit where Embot was funny. So Embot was my favourite character from the first book, and then he kind of changed a bit, but right at the end of this, there was a bit where I was like, oh, my Embot, he's back. Also, I definitely still love the slugs. What happened with the slugs in this was good. I really like the progression of that. And there are some interesting themes being explored in this. I did think the way that it was done in this particular book through a lot of conversation was a little bit tedious, but again, YA target market, probably more appropriate for that. Whereas like I think with adult books tend to be less obvious, more transparent with the way themes are dealt with, whereas YA books, you know, when you're a young adult, you're still learning, you just want to be told stuff, and that's fine. But I'm past that, so yeah, unfortunately this wasn't my favorite, but I do think it was better than, where did I put it? It was better than the Fragile Threads of Power. Also though, what I will say is both of these books are kind of these floppy paperbacks, this one more floppy. I don't know why people like floppy paperbacks. Normally my library would cover these more with plastic covers, but I've noticed lately they haven't been doing with that with new releases, and I suspect it's because lately a lot of new releases aren't becoming books that the library wants to keep for a long time, because it's more and more like new releases are books that people are really excited about in the moment and then they disappear. Is that just consumerism and the way that it's escalating until the apocalypse? I don't know. But my library has stopped putting plastic covers on it, and these were just so floppy. I feel like this book, when I got it from the library, was almost a new book, and now it like won't sit flat. And it's not like I didn't read it carefully. So it's making me feel like I haven't looked after my library book enough, but it's just that they haven't covered it like they normally would. Anyway, that is my new releases reading vlog. Obviously, I Liked One of Us is back the most. That is the one I had the most hope for going into it. So maybe when I have doubts, I shouldn't be picking books up. I don't know. But I am glad to say that I finished this series. I did really like the first book, so I was always continuing based on the hope that it would get back to that. This one, I did really like the first book, The Darker Shades of Magic, A Darker Shade of Magic. Then though, on my reread, I didn't really like the second and third books, and that should have been a clue to me that I wasn't going to like this. But I was still hopeful. Unfortunately not. Anyway, let me know if you've read any of these books. I'd love to talk with you about them down in the comments, or let me know how you found new releases this year. Like, have they been living up to your expectations? Do also subscribe down below if you would like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.